Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Russ Jones.
And Brad Kennan, how are you doing tonight?
Good. We are wide open. How you doing?
Absolutely. I'm good.
Good. Glad to hear that.
I like
You
your
know how I'm
background.
doing today?
Yeah, I'm sure you're doing great. Feel
Champion-like.
Champion-like. Like I said, I was in training all day, so I didn't get to do shit. I'm sorry, I didn't get to do anything. My Fitbit was like yelling at me half the time, do something, move.
Because you're trying to get, have you been getting your 10,000 steps a day?
I've been getting close. A lot of them. I get to that 9,000 or something or somewhere around there, and then I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. It is what it is. I only got so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, if you're getting 8,000, you're getting 80% of the benefit, but
right.
You're doing pretty good with it.
I like to, and then you go to the gym, and so that's got to be worth some steps or something. Just going to the gym and working out, lifting weights, I assume. So,
I mean, what am I going to do when you didn't eat a vegetable like 15 years ago to now, like being, kind of a fitness nut? So it's like hard to yell at you.
I would not say I'm a fitness nut, but I do enjoy going to the gym and taking my medicine and my vitamins now that you tell me to take. And
yeah,
so I'm waiting. I'm wearing loose fit sweatshirts so you can't see my bulk yet. So
yeah,
when I see
we're in bulking season,
right? Yeah, believe me, we are.
Isn't that what everybody at the gym says? You can add 10 or 15 pounds because you're bulking, and then when spring comes, you try to take all your bulk off so that you're.
No, that sucks. I had to go get. I went to the doctor the other day, and they're like, "Hey, you're actually losing weight." And I'm like, "Great, thanks." I'm like,
"Wow."
Good. Yeah. So I think hopefully it's just transferring to other parts of my body.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that would be the ideal thing, right?
Right. Exactly. So I think, didn't Arnold Schwarzenegger say one time that he would eat a pile of dog crap just to get a pound of muscle if he could?
Yeah. And a pound of muscle builds or burns an extra 200 calories a day doing nothing.
Right.
So for most people, if they can just, add a couple of pounds of muscle, I mean, even if you didn't change your diet that much, it would be, a big deal.
Yeah. But we have age working against us, so it's not great.
That's right. That's right.
It is.
I was in the woods today. Beautiful day.
I know it was very nice today, wasn't it?
Here we're like 50s at night. I would think when I was in the woods after patients today, it was about 72. Wow. I was, I was right as you start into the West Virginia Turnpike for the people heading south from the northern states. There was a couple of sightings right at that first exit right before you get on the turnpike. And last year, I think about this time, I cast a track up there, and I'd had two different witnesses within a half mile of each other. So I've been spending time up there when it gets about this time of year, just walking around, hoping that I can see something. We had torrential flooding up there about a month ago, and the whole road had been blocked.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good, keeping people out.
Well, it's 7 miles to the top of that mountain. And a lot of times in there, there's cliffs that are, today I was looking down, they're like maybe 75 feet high. So the animals are crossing just in certain places along that 7 miles, because there's cliffs and a creek. The banks now are very high, in some places from the flooding, maybe 8 or 10 feet high. So there's lots of places where they can't cross. There's some four-wheeler traffic that's been in there. You'd see it every now and then, but now there's just nothing in there. So I thought it was a good time. Saw a bobcat, which was cool. You don't get to see those in the woods very much, especially when you're walking.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a testament to my ninja-like abilities in the woods when I'm walking. Yeah, my stealthness.
You walked up on a bobcat.
Yeah, I was walking coming on this path. I was on the other way. I mean, I'm surprised, because Shade wants to eat the grass when we get in the woods. And so about every minute he's going, and so it's annoying to me, but I'm thinking, well, it's some kind of weird sound. Maybe it'll attract something because he's making these weird sounds.
I'm sure Daniel Boone would be proud of your stealthiness in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. I pulled a couple cameras out of the woods on Saturday, but I have not looked at them yet.
Okay. And I noticed your camera in your background is working flawlessly today also.
Yeah, I'm glad that you wouldn't let that slide by, so that
I'm not going to let that. I'm not letting it slide at all.
I've got the $1 million setup, and anytime that there's an update, I have to call over my tech friend to save me.
Right.
So
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
First world problems, Russ. First world problems.
I know it's really true. But let me see, what else did I see in the woods today? It's interesting. I was walking along this path, and you're on a mountain. It's at the turnpike. They're maybe 1,800 feet high, something like that when it starts. And by the time you get to Beckley, in the middle of the turnpike, it's maybe 2,500 or 3,000.
Okay.
And the animals like finding these holes where the four-wheelers will rut out that hold water. It's kind of like those,
sure,
like a little spring or something. And
okay,
so one I noticed, I saw deer tracks around it. I saw turkey tracks, bobcat tracks, coyote tracks, and then I saw some if I didn't say turkey tracks, I saw where a turkey had been dusting itself because each day turkeys have to go to get a piece of rock for their crawl, kind of like chickens do, so that when they eat stuff, it kind of helps grind it up.
sure.
So they're always finding a little thing like that. And then they go up around a dusty place and they'll roll around to get the dust on their feathers. Okay. And I saw where they had been doing that today in that same spot. So, I guess if you can find a place that's up on a hill, up on a mountain, that something doesn't have to go all the way down to the bottom in order to try to find water where their predators might be, because they know that everything has got to come there. It's a good thing to look for, a good place to look for things.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's all I got on that, man.
Like I said, I got nothing either. So I just, work is, the daily grind. We just grind daily.
Whoops, you lost your thing. You came unplugged there.
There you go. Hopefully one of these days we'll be able to retire and enjoy ourselves. So
yeah.
But that's enough about us. I do.
Okay.
Believe.
Yeah. Everybody's heard enough of us today.
We've heard enough. Yeah. All right. So we have a Bigfoot witness, because we try to get witnesses on every once in a while, and you've done 1,000 witness reports, and it's tough to get people to come on and talk about what they do because you make them nervous. I calm them down.
It's because you don't smile, man. It's because you're not smiling. Right. They're intimidated by
my gruffness.
Yeah, that's it. That's the word I was looking for.
My gruffness.
Ask your wife. She says she watches all the time. See if she thinks you're smiling.
She doesn't watch us. Are you kidding me? She's like, I hear enough of you. She's like, I hear enough of you on a daily basis. Why would I want to hear you in the car? Why would I want to hear you in the car when I'm not in the car with her? She definitely doesn't want to hear me in the car.
And then when we were new, she used to listen to us, but I guess now she's just enough.
Yeah, it's enough.
Yeah,
she's like, I've heard every story 50 times. Yeah. And I'm sure if something exciting happens, you'll tell me. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So, but shout out to my grandkids who do listen to me. So,
I mean, it's enough to hear me like 10 minutes sometimes. So, I can't imagine, living, it'd be a lot.
Sure. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that I'm the nice one.
Okay.
We're going to bring on a witness because it's your witness, though. So you're going to have to talk about it because I don't know much about this witness.
Okay.
So we're going to bring on Tammy Copeland.
Hey, Tammy, how are you?
Who has had, I do believe,
good. How are you?
Multiple Bigfoot encounters. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I don't know that they were a big one. I think for sure that's probably what it was, but I didn't know at the time since I was 6.
Okay.
But the other ones, there's a good possibility. I feel like that probably was what it was. Let me
tell you, you can probably notice from Tammy that she has that wonderful, cute West Virginia accent that, I don't have it so much because, I grew up in Ohio, but she sounds like some of the people from the southern part of the state, and she is from the coal fields. And I've spent a lot of time around where she is in the southern part of the state. And Brad, it is so steep there that you just can't even imagine sometimes how steep the hills are. And you try to take a picture so you can post it and show it justice. It just doesn't do it, man. It's like crazy. And of course, go ahead.
So when you say the coal fields of West Virginia, what part of West Virginia are you exactly talking about?
Down 119 quarter G, which is about an hour, 45 minutes or an hour south of Charleston.
Okay.
And
because everybody from the north has gone down, 77, whatever, 77, 74, hit Beckley. You either go to Virginia or you keep going and you're going to the Carolinas or whatever that is. So get me from there.
When you're on the turnpike, you can see some of the mountaintop mining removals. And when you get to Beckley, there are some coal mines and stuff around there, and it looks steep to people when they're on. It's funny because my West Virginia friends and relatives, they always say, we're like, get out, in West Virginia, we're like, get the Ohioans out of the left-hand passing lane. They're going too slow. And then all the Ohioans are saying, well, gosh, it's so steep and hilly, how are you doing that? But really, it's just not that steep compared to the place where Tammy lives.
Okay.
And it is, go ahead. Were you going to ask me something?
No. So Tammy lives in a remote part of West Virginia.
Yeah. She's a nurse.
Okay.
And lives down in the remote part of the state. I mean, and the way it is down there, the mountains are so steep that the houses are largely in the hollows, and the houses are usually around each other. But then you may have many, many miles between roads. And a lot of times, I mean, to get up the mountain may take an hour, hour and a half because it's so steep.
Okay.
So there's a lot of reports that come out down there. I spent a lot of time down there in that area that she's in. I had a lot of game cameras up. They had released elk there a few years ago, and I found some elk poop and tracks. And so I was trying to get a picture of the elk because I was curious about it. And I just never did get a picture of them. They're not always in that exact place where I was located. And then I was trying to, there's just a lot of good Bigfoot reports were coming out of certain areas down there. But it's just the terrain is so rough, and the people down there a lot of times are not comfortable talking to outsiders. We're talking the Hatfield McCoy area. That's where the trails are. There's how much, Tammy, like maybe 1,500 miles of trails now, something like that.
Yeah. Yes. And they're getting ready to add about 50 more miles over in the main area.
Yeah. So, there's all those people that are riding the side-by-sides everywhere. You can be in West Virginia now. You can drive them right on the roads as long as they have taillights and the license plate and that whole deal. And you see them everywhere. And it used to be, you just see them in the coal fields and these little towns relying on the people coming in to rent the B&Bs and to ride their side-by-sides into town to pick up, drinks or water or whatever it is they're going to get, some dinner and that kind of thing. And it's really like in the gorge where we have so many people coming for whitewater rafting. The southern part of the state is relying largely now on, the Hatfield McCoy stuff along with the mining.
There's a lot of tourism dollars coming in. So,
yeah, there really is. And some of the best reports I've taken are out of the southern part of the state, but you just don't get that many of them because, you have to have two things in order to, get a Bigfoot report, right? You have to have a Bigfoot and you have to have a witness. And sometimes it's hard to get those. And, you and I've talked about before. Go ahead.
Well, think about how many people have been riding a side-by-side and they're like, whoa, what was that? And it's gone. And you don't know. And you're riding with 4 other guys or 5 other guys. You're not going to stop. You're not going to slow down a lot of times. You just let it go, So
remember I sent you that one, what is it, literally 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Somebody on a side-by-side in West Virginia. They were in Boone County riding up an old mine reclamation, and something that darted across the road in front of them. And it was daytime, and you could see it was whatever it was bipedal. But
it was fast, but it was short.
Yeah, you just, there's no way of knowing. It clearly wasn't a deer or a bear or anything, or, anything like that. It was just
it looked like an elk.
An elk. Well, I mean, probably a juvenile Bigfoot probably look a little bit like an elk, I guess.
Sure,
what I mean in terms of height or whatever.
Sure, absolutely.
Maybe it's one of the little people. They believe that in some places around the world.
Right.
And,
so okay,
you got that. I mean, I took another one maybe 2 years ago. A guy they were filming him going up this right away on a side-by-side, and you could see a Bigfoot that was standing up there, and then it went back into the wood line. And I reached out to the guy, but I just couldn't get him to respond to me.
Gotcha.
A lot of people just don't want to talk about it. I mean, I hear that commonly. I heard from a witness this week, somebody on Facebook reached out and said, hey, my boyfriend had a really good close encounter with a Bigfoot during deer season. He said he would talk to you, and, but you reach out and they're like, they're kind of, they're not sure what it's all about and whether or not they want to be really involved in that whole thing.
Right. Well, Tammy's awful nervous, and I can tell.
I mean, she doesn't want to be the Bigfoot nurse, right? I mean, she doesn't go to work next week, and everybody's like, did you really say a Bigfoot?
It's too late. I already am.
Oh, you're already the Bigfoot.
I kind of caught the Bigfoot fever, and now I'm just in over my head with it.
So have you, have you, when you caught the Bigfoot fever after, so you had these sightings possibly, when you're younger, and another one, which we're going to get into that, did you do the whole thing where you went to the BFRO website, or you Google Bigfoot reports and you just read reports like for next thing you know, you look down, it's midnight and you've been reading reports for like 4 hours?
Yeah, yeah. I actually wasn't. I was one of the skeptical people that says if there was a Bigfoot, we'd have a body, it'd get hit by a car,
Sure.
things like that. Until I was on a road trip with my daughter, and I actually picked Russ's book up at Babcock State Park because I
Okay.
forgot to bring something to read in the cabin, and yeah, that's what sparked my interest. And then the stories, there just wasn't enough stories in there for me, so that's when I hit the website and
Gotcha.
started, I want to know what's going on in Logan. Yeah, and that's kind of what made me think of a combination of reading Russ's book, and in that book it says that a lot of people may have had a Bigfoot encounter and not realize that that's even what it was, because it doesn't cross somebody's mind that
Sure.
that could be a possibility. So it was kind of a combination of reading that and then going on the BFRO website and reading about an encounter that a person had on 22 Mountain here in Logan. And that made me think of a time, the Halloween haunted trail. We had went up about, it was late at night.
All right, so you've had 2 encounters. Do we want to? We'll start with this one because this is when. How old were you at the time?
This one was probably.
You don't have to tell us how old you were, but maybe
about 8 years ago.
Okay, so fairly recently. So you're an adult.
Yeah.
I can see that you're an adult. So you're an adult. She's a nurse. So you've been practicing. You're an intelligent person, obviously, if you're a nurse. And you went to this Halloween. Was it now in the area where you live? Something like that? So we're talking that kind of steep, rugged terrain, kind of where you're at. And I'm sure everybody's been to one of those, what you're talking about, which is the old hay wagon or walk off through the woods or whatever that is, to do a haunted thing. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So this particular haunted trail, it was, by the time we decided to go up to this, it was late at night, the last night they were having it. So it was probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We weren't even sure they were going to be there still.
Okay.
And it was all the way up on 22 Mountain. And I know you aren't familiar with that, but
No.
it is a secluded, long way up on this mountain. And where the trail was, it was a bunch of turns onto a smaller road, turn onto a smaller road, turn onto a smaller road till you're onto the top of this mountain. And the people, they were shutting down the trail, and there was maybe 5 or 6 people there, but they were like, yeah, we want to take your money, so give us a few minutes, let us get set back up, and we'll let you go on the trail. So we hung around there with them a little bit, and they set the trail up, and we went on it, and it was your basic thrown together. It may have been better earlier, but they had twinkle lights through the woods and your basic scares and things like that. And about halfway through, I guess some of their people had gone home, and they were like, well, this used to be longer.
So they had live actors at the time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they were like, it used to be longer, but everybody's gone home, so this is kind of the end of it.
Did they give you a discount?
No.
Okay. All right. I didn't think they would. Anyway, go ahead.
So they we're kind of up still in the mountain in the middle of the trail. There's twinkle lights that still go on the rest of the way. And the person who was leading us was kind of like, if you keep going, you'll come out closer to your car than you would if you turn around and go back the way we came. And he was like, the twinkle lights go right back down the mountain, just follow them. So we left, and then it was just us, and it comes up to this point where it kind of is turning, going back down the mountain, and off in the distance through the woods, I think there's probably there's mine stuff going on up there, like mountaintop mining and stuff. So beyond the woods where we're at, there it's lit a little bit. So there's what's in the woods is shadowed, and yet we could see somebody standing back in the woods, kind of like this around a tree.
Okay.
A very tall, big person who
So what
I thought
Tammy,
was dressed up.
what she's saying for the listening audience is she's talking about the whatever
peak.
it was, tree peaking, and then it was bending out back and forth, which
Yeah.
is really common what you hear with Bigfoot behavior. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So at the time, I'm thinking, oh, they're tricking us. They've got one more jump scare left. Any minute, this guy's going to come running and scare us. But it never did. It stayed back there in the woods. So when we get back down to our car, the guys from the trail had actually crawled up under my car and jumped. There was the final jump scare. They jumped out as we were getting in our car.
That was nice.
And yeah. So I told them, for you all to throw this back together, it was okay. Especially that last guy standing in the woods that didn't do anything. That was so creepy. That was a good touch. And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. There's nobody up there. And then one of the other guys says, I told you somebody was in the woods throwing something at me earlier when we were setting up.
So that is, again, that's typical Bigfoot behavior.
Yeah.
I don't like you here. I'm going to throw something at you. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So this at the time did not cross my mind as being Bigfoot or anything. I had no knowledge of Bigfoot other than, in my mind, this supernatural thing that you see on some kind of unexplained show or something.
Some Travel Channel special 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Right, gotcha.
So it was, like I said, only years later when I read that in Russ's book about people may have had a Bigfoot encounter. And after I had read some of the other things in the book that...
So I have a question.
Behaviors. Yeah.
Did you know Russ before you bought his book?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't even set out I wasn't even interested in Bigfoot. The only reason I bought it at the Babcock, it looked like the most interesting book on the shelf.
Well, good.
That was that the first book or the second book?
It was the first one.
Okay.
I have the second one too.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I play a big part in that book too. I think I'm in one picture. So
yeah. If you saw that book, you saw Brad's picture in there.
He flatters me by every book he reads. He just puts me in one picture. So that's good. Okay, so
go ahead.
So you had this encounter. How far away from this thing were you?
I would say 200 or 300 feet. It was pretty far back toward the back of the area where we were. And the only reason we would have even been able to see it was just because it was he was backlit by whatever was on the other side of that mountain that was lit up.
Okay.
What gave you the impression? You said that it looked large to you. What gave you the impression that it was large?
I think because of the bulkiness of it,
mm-hmm.
You just assume. I know that we're away from it, but just because of how bulky, and I really thought somebody had like a costume on with football pads under it or something because of the bulkiness of it. And I guess just because of that bulkiness, it just is assumed to be tall too.
Okay.
Tammy, let me ask you, you said that there was another report that was close to that same area. Is that right? That you had read?
Yeah, the guy
Do you remember what that was about?
He was a night watchman at a mine, mountaintop mining removal, and they had moved to a different location, but they had still left some of the equipment back at the old location. So he was the only one there guarding the equipment, and the majority of, or all of the rest of the operation was on the other side of the mountain, as far as I can remember in his story. And he had a guard shack or something, and every once in a while he had to come out and walk the perimeter. And he said that he came out and walked the perimeter and saw something in the bushes that he at first thought was a bear. But then when he shined his lights on it, it stood up, and he realized it wasn't a bear. And I don't remember all the details of what he said happened, but I do know that he quit that night. He went back to the guard shaft. He was afraid to go to his car because it was blocked or between where he had seen that. But once it got daylight, he got in and left and went to the other side where the other people were and said he wouldn't be back. I remember that part of the story.
How far away from you was that one?
I'm not sure where that operation was, because 22 Mountain has at least 2 mining operations on it. It actually connects to Pine Creek, which is close to where I live. So there's a mining operation on that side, and then there's that mountaintop.
But it's
over
within
on the other side
a few miles or something like that. Is that right?
of where I live.
Yeah, and where your encounter happened at the Halloween place.
I would say it's about 10 miles to the other side. You start out where I had the where the Halloween thing happened.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know, because I don't know where his mining operation was on that mountain. It's pretty big.
Okay.
So after you had your encounter, you went home. How long did it kind of take you to realize that maybe this was a Bigfoot?
Years.
Okay. So after you read Russ's book, you read the book and you thought, okay, well, I picked up this book. It's about Bigfoot, the Chasing the Stone Man, which is a book about, basically Bigfoot in Appalachia. You read the book, and were you a Bigfoot believer before you read the book, or was it, you said it was something just kind of like Travel Channel. So you picked up this book. So obviously I assume you're a believer now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it always, before, I'd seen Bigfoot kind of presented in a supernatural kind of way.
Or a hokey sort of way.
Yeah, and no. Okay. But the way it's now, I see it as just an animal that's very elusive, very intelligent, and just hasn't been seen yet, or the evidence
classified properly.
Yeah.
Because people know that you're interested in it, have you ever had people come up and tell you stories about Bigfoot?
Yes. Yeah, I have it's interesting that you said that about Boone County earlier, because I have a friend of mine who she told me a story about she grew up in Boone County, and she said that there was a dirt road that she had to walk on back and forth to get to where she got on the school bus or something. And her dad was adamant. She grew up in her dad and her lived in her dad's childhood home. And he was adamant that she not go off of that road and go into, she said there was a cornfield there at that time, and he was adamant that she not go in that cornfield, because he told her that on the other side of that there was a monster or something there, and to not go off. But she said he didn't say it in a way to scare her, just to obey. She was a teenager, and he told her, there's something there that chased me out. Don't go in there. There's a monster in there on the other side, in the forest on the other side.
That's cool. I wonder if her father's still alive.
No, he's not. He passed away a few years ago.
Wow. I'd still be interested in talking to her sometime, just to, document the story in the area that it happened in.
Sure. So that was recently.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said that when you were around 6 years old,
Yeah.
you had another encounter. Tell us about that.
I was out in my yard. I think that it was probably summertime, and the way my childhood home is, my house and yard is kind of here, and then there's like an alley, and then a large church lot, then a main highway, then a creek.
Okay.
And um, my swing set sat right in the yard to where I could swing, and I kind of looked out over all of that to the
Okay.
creek. And I was out after dark. My grandma and grandpa were there, and I guess my mom and dad had lost track of time, so I was swinging, and it was dark or dusk probably.
Okay.
And I saw something walking down my middle of the creek, just walking. I could see it, shoulders and head.
Okay.
And I had a little dog, and I guess he saw it about the same time that I saw it and started barking. And when he started barking, whatever it was kind of stopped and turned and looked their direction, then started kind of walking up the bank. And to my 6-year-old eyes, I thought it was a sea monster. It looked like a monster that had seaweed on it.
Okay.
And so I just ran to the house screaming, got my dad and my grandpa. They came out. They didn't see anything. They even went over there and didn't see anything. And my dad at the time told me that I probably saw somebody coming out of the creek who was fishing. But even then, I knew that that was not a man. To me, it was a monster. It was a sea monster. And all my life, I've tried to reconcile what I saw. Because as an adult, I know that I did not see a sea monster in the creek.
Right.
But I saw something that wasn't a man come out of that creek. So as I actually was telling my dad about sending in the report about the story I just told to Russ, and talking to my dad about Bigfoot, and he was like, I bet that's what you saw over in the creek. And it hadn't even occurred to me till he said that, oh my goodness, this is a lifelong mystery solved. That had to be what it was, because probably the fur hanging off of it was seaweed to me, being 6 years old and
Sure.
just seeing something like that.
Sure.
W-
Go ahead.
When it came up the bank, was it coming towards you up the bank?
It seemed like that it was coming up the bank toward me. But here's the thing, when I was practicing with my daughter for this, she told me to be sure this creek is probably 5-6 feet down from the main road. So
Okay.
in order for me to see the shoulders and head of what was walking in the creek, it had to be more
Really
than
tall.
6 feet tall
Yeah.
for me
Absolutely.
to see it. And so now, I don't know. To me, at the time, it seemed like it was coming up the bank, but it may have just turned and walked closer to the bank, and because it was so tall, it seemed
Sure.
like it was coming up the bank.
So have you been over
But
to
in the
that
time
same
that
place?
I have,
Okay, so
yeah,
how far away now, when you've been there and you think, okay, this is where I was and that's where it happened, how far away do you think that was from you, the animal was from you?
um, I'm not really good with feet, but like I said, there's an alley and then kind of a double church parking lot. There's places to park on both sides of the church parking lot, then a main highway,
Mm-hmm.
then about 2 or 3 feet of dirt along the creek. So however many feet, that 2 roads, a double parking lot, and that little strip of land would be.
So is it kind of like normal West Virginia stuff? Like, you might have a few houses or a church or whatever, but then the mountainsides go up and there's nothing for miles, typical type thing like that.
Yeah, on the other side of the creek, there's nothing. It's mountain straight up and down.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it couldn't go that direction. It had to come either down the creek or towards you, one of the two.
Yeah,
or up the creek.
Just up the creek from where it was is what is called Pine Creek, which I told you earlier is the other side of 22 Mountain.
Okay.
So it would have had to have probably came out of that area.
And 22 Mountain is where you had your sighting 8 years ago, correct?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If this thing was in that area, it could have been, I'm not saying it's the same one, but
sure,
that family group, a lot of times they tend to stay in certain areas or something like that. So, okay.
Yeah. No, let me ask you this. I was curious that you said that your dad, I mean, he was really open to the idea, I guess, because when you were just recently talking to him about, or whenever it was that you were talking to him about, he didn't say, oh, there's nothing over there or nothing lives in these hills or anything like that. He was just like, must have been the same thing that you saw before. Like he, as he had some reason to believe himself.
No, and he used to be an avid hunter, and I asked him had he ever had any experiences or anything that he would think was a Bigfoot, and he said that the only thing that he can ever remember happening, there'd been a couple of times, he always hunted in the same, it was where he grew up as a boy, and even as an adult, that's where he always went back to hunt, and he said there'd been a couple of times just that everything got really silent and he just had a really bad feeling and he kind of left the woods. But nothing concrete, nothing that ran him out of the woods or threw things at him or anything like that. He said that there'd been a few times when he had just didn't feel right and left.
I think that I always say, people have been in woods a lot or hunters know that what you're talking about. I always say that the woods takes a deep breath. It's like it's quiet. It's everything's listening or pausing. There's something there that's going on, whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's a big cat or maybe it's, a human or whatever it happens to be. But nature takes a deep breath there, a pause, because something's there. I think Brad and you and I talked about how we wondered how many more sightings, because there's a lot of sightings. What we say 100,000 in modern times, and they predict only about 1 in 20 are getting reported.
Yep.
How many people say, I was just in this place, and I just, I got the heebie-jeebies, or I didn't feel like I was supposed to be there, and I bailed out of there, and whatever it is. How many people would have encounters with this?
Well, how many hunters have gone out of the woods and they'll never tell anybody that they got the heebie-jeebies and were run out of the woods because they're hunters, and a lot of times they just don't want to admit that. So
I'll tell you, I practice in West Virginia and have for almost 32 years, and I'm not going to say every hunter, but maybe every other hunter, if something didn't happen to them, they have a story about somebody they know that something happened to them.
Somebody they know.
Yeah, somebody they know.
Right. I know this guy.
Things. Yeah. And, like we were talking about earlier, it is true that in order for you to have an encounter with Bigfoot, you have to recognize, what the noises or the sounds or Bigfoot behavior, whatever happens to be. And I always say that, prior to finding Bigfoot, I don't think that the public, by and large, the general public really knew that Bigfoot made sounds. Then we start hearing the screams and the wood knocks and stuff like that. And then it was common. I mean, you remember, Brad, like for, 5 years, those of us that were in the BFRO, we literally did not know what to do with all the noise reports. I mean, we were just getting hundreds and hundreds of noise reports of people remembering hearing those knocks and people thinking they hear this and that. And, you don't, like today when I was out, I saw hickory and acorn nuts were really dropping. Really nice big acorns were on the ground. And if I didn't know better, you could think, oh, something was making a knocking sound, and I'm sure a lot of them are misidentified. But, once again, I think that I wish that I could have asked my grandfather. I remember there was around Selesky State Forest, there was a big deal, and somebody had some Bigfoot sightings, and a guy had apparently shot at one and wounded it, and around 100 people came down and circled this area of Selesky and went in, and apparently they saw something running. And I remember asking my grandfather, what he thought it was, and he said that he thought that, keep in mind that now Ohio still has between 50 and 100 resident bears, and we're talking about 40, 50 years ago. There was probably just a handful in the whole state.
Sure.
He said that he thought that it was probably just a bear. But now I wish that I could sit down and talk to him, the man that traveled all the most remote places in Ohio, ginseng hunting and all types of hunting, and say, did you ever feel like something was watching you? Did you ever get spooked when you were in the woods? I mean, he was out there all the time coon hunting by himself. And, I've told the story many times. I remember him and I coon hunting, and we're sitting. You didn't have good lights when Brad and I were growing up.
Right.
And so we were using carbide light, one of them, which is kind of like a big candle. And I'd have a big, I don't remember what cell flashlight, but you didn't turn it on because the battery didn't last very long. So you had to wait for a coon to be in a tree before you turned it on for anything. So we would load up with as many apples as we could put in our coveralls or our jeans. And we'd be sitting on some hillside, that's 4 or 5 miles from the nearest little gravel road, listening for our dogs to bark. And I remember hearing the wood knocks and asking Grandpa what that was, and him saying that when people slammed their car doors, the sound traveled up the hollows funny and made it sound weird. And he believed it. He didn't know any better. And I wish now that I could talk to him about that.
Right.
Yeah.
He was, certainly said that later that, it's hard to tell, what exists in these hills, and you hear it all the time. I know I got a message from someone today, and a lady had told me that she wasn't sure that she believed, and I said that I'd be happy to take her out and use her for bait. And she said that she thought that was rather harsh. And I said, well, if it doesn't exist, then you're good, right? But she didn't want to really go.
You would, I didn't think you would say something like that, Russ.
That someone would be good bait.
I'm supposed to be the mean one, remember?
Oh,
you're the nice one.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. People, people have opinions about stuff in America that I guess that's the American thing. I mean, like we're allowed to do until this illness that went across our country, you were allowed to say kind of whatever you wanted to say, and it was your business, and whatever went, that was okay. And some people would think you were stupid, and some people believe, and some people wouldn't. But
right.
We have, people from all over the country that, Bigfoot is hotly contested. One of the most iconic things, the Patterson-Gimlin film in October 1967 is the most iconic, most viewed piece of film in history.
Right.
And people are still interested in it. People still debating it all the time. People living in New York City, Miami, will have an opinion on Bigfoot. People that have literally never been in the woods a day in their life will have an opinion on whether or not Bigfoot would exist.
Right. And it's some guy that's generally in his mom's basement, and he's keyboard warrior in it, right? And it's like, I have asked those people before, they want to say something. I said, okay, this is great. I agree with you. Come in the woods with me one time. We'll go out about midnight, and we'll stay out till about 3 or 4 in the morning, and we won't have any lights on, and we'll see how it goes. And nobody wants to take you up on that offer.
No, I remember you had a friend that went, and you got bluff charged.
Yep. Yeah. And years later, he didn't believe, we got bluff charged, and I remember years later, we were retelling the story in a meeting because somebody had asked, and he goes, it was a freaking Bigfoot, man. It was a Bigfoot. Bigfoot came after us. And I said, well, there you go. I said, he was a non-believer. He just wanted to go camping with me. And next thing you know, we're out in the woods. We got bluff charged and all this stuff happened. And he's wondering what the heck that was. And I'm trying to say, hey, you know what I do for fun, and we're out here doing it. So you tell me what it was. And he's like, but no, he was, he years later, like, man, it was a Bigfoot. We got chased by a Bigfoot. So
now, Tammy, do you live in a place now where you have a chance that you could see something? I mean, I know on any of the roads down there is a distinct possibility, but around your house? Do you live remote enough that that could happen?
Not where I'm at, where I live right now, but I'm just about I'm still I just live a mile from where I grew up, so um the Pine Creek is just a few miles up the road, so I could go up there. I'm just not brave enough to go up there by myself, and I can't get anybody to go up there with me.
Are you
I
talking about where you had the experience when you were doing the haunted house thing, or just in
not
general?
just the other side, the Pine Creek side of it,
Hmm.
because I wouldn't know where to go on the 22 Mountain side, but my daughter and I kind of had a little bit of another experience. It may or may not have been anything, but we had lost a cat, and someone had told us that one of our neighbors we had rabbits in the neighborhood, and my cat was chasing the rabbits. So somebody had told me that my neighbor took my cat and took it up Pine Creek and dropped it off. So we went up a holler. It's called Left Fork of Pine Creek, because that's where we were told she was at. And we were afraid that the car would scare her, so we parked the car kind of at the end of the holler and walked up. And it's maybe a couple, 3 miles
There.
up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as we were walking back out, we were probably maybe a half mile from the car, and we're hollering my cat's name the whole time. Um, my daughter all of a sudden says, "Stop, be quiet." And I was like, "Oh, do you hear?" And she was like, "No, I hear something." And we started listening, and we could hear something kind of walking beside us, but in the woods out of sight. And every time it would get to a tree right beside us, it was doing something like scratching it, not shaking it, not wood knocking it or anything like that. It sounded like it was trying to scratch bark off of it,
Was
but
this at
it was
dark?
keeping. It was at dusk. We were
Okay.
running out of daylight because we had, like, just right before that, talked about we were losing daylight. And yeah, so we just kind of sped up our pace to the car, but the whole way to the car, there's something staying right beside of us, and it just sounded like it was running fingernails down every tree it came to as we were going down through there. So I want to go back up there, but I can't get anybody else to go with me. So
Well, if I'm ever down there, I'll go up there with you. I mean,
okay,
I don't know about the scratching thing. I haven't heard anything like that, but I
yeah,
mean,
that's what I
certainly
said.
paralleling is very common behavior. You know, you commonly will see it. I remember Caroline Curtis, which is the secretary for the BFRO, Matt Moneymaker's right hand woman, in the first expedition that Caroline went on. You know, she was following this group walking along, and when they got back, they said, "Well, did anybody see anything?" And she said, "Well, I saw a Bigfoot." And they're all like, "What?" And she said, you know, that they were all walking along, and she looked to the left, and about 15 or 20 yards to the left of them, she saw one walking right along with them. And she kind of thought that's the way it was supposed to happen, and that's what it was supposed to do.
Oh,
And she didn't know any different. And so I think everybody, you know, kind of enjoyed that story a lot. Have you ever been over to Chief or Logan State Park?
I have, yeah,
How far do you live from there?
just about 10 or 12 miles.
Okay. You know, I used to spend a lot of time over there, and I had cameras out there. And I know on a couple of different occasions, you know, I had heard wood knocks for sure, you know, inside that park. And there were some reports that had came out of there historically. And it's a very beautiful park that people are, you know, commonly go to. And so I had went in there one time, and I had two people walking with me, and I heard the wood knocks, and I said, "Now you guys just turn so you're facing me." So they just kind of stood and like they were talking to me or whatever. So I was facing that mountainside and looking up there, you know, I mean, just with intent. And I've had this happen to me maybe 3 or 4 different times where I'm very close to where wood knocking is going on, and I know it's right there, and I know that I should be able to see it. You know, it's probably in the brush or it's peeking around a tree, something I can just barely see, but I know that it's right there. You know, I could see it, but I have yet to see that happen. But that's a good place for
Yeah.
you to go over if you're interested in it, you know, and take a walk on there. They have really nice trails over there and a history of Bigfoot activity. But there's a
We
lot of
were
rattlesnakes.
fishing. We were fishing at the pond there one night, and we had one of those silent things. Like there's a ton of crickets and frogs and everything around that pond, and we had one of those moments where everything was just silent there at
Yeah.
that pond. But
Well,
that could have
I
been a
said,
bear or anything.
what I called it, the woods take a deep breath. But after I told you that, I thought of another author called it a pregnant pause, that the woods had a pregnant pause, meaning there was just so much anticipation that something was there that, you'll hear that commonly in the woods. But I know that when you're standing there at that pond, if you look up on the mountain straight up for you, I have one of the pictures in one of the books is me standing looking at my phone, and I'm standing on top of that mountain overlooking that pond.
Oh, really?
I just happened to be in the one place I had a cell signal, and my game camera took a picture of me standing there.
Oh,
but it's a wonderful place. But listen, I know you were nervous, but you did great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad.
I am back.
I saw my hands in my daughter will be disappointed. I used my hands.
I know,
that's right.
See him.
Yeah, and I said every time I said it today, then I was noticing it, because we don't listen to ourselves on playback or anything. So it'd be fun to go back and listen to maybe the first few episodes and see what it was like and see how much it's changed or if it's different 50-something episodes later.
Yeah.
See if we're getting any better at all. We don't know. So
yeah, who knows?
We could be getting worse. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right too.
Yeah.
Tammy, thank you for your time. And
yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate you. Like so many of the people that have came to me with reports over the years, you and I have got to know each other, and we keep in contact and on Facebook and whatnot. And I appreciate you. And maybe someday I'll make my way down there and we'll go up that road that you're spooked about going up and see what we see.
That sounds good.
Well,
thanks for having me.
Pick a good time of year, when the Bigfoot are around. So it's around Halloween, right? It's coming up. So, all righty. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Y'all take care.
All right.
Bye, Tammy.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulty. All of a sudden, I lost you guys. I was gone.
Hey, we kept rolling, man.
I know. I came back. I was thinking, God, I don't want to do this again.
No, we're not going to do it again. We just keep rolling.
Right. So it came and it was fine. I don't know what happened. Somebody must have,
Who knows? Interestingly, the Bruno house, you remember those?
Mm-hmm. The Bruno.
Those, you and I have talked about them before.
Oh, yeah.
That's right where she lives.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, every fall there's always a report of, these Bigfoot vocals that come through in that general area. And if people go on YouTube and put in Bruno, West Virginia house, Brad and I did an episode on some of the best recordings, and it's really
right up there.
Remarkable ones in the whole country.
Yeah, they were those ones were right up there. They were very creepy. So
yeah, that's not what you want to hear in the woods, when you're going in there or something. That's
no, sometimes you just turn around and you leave.
Yeah, that's just what you do. There's there's got to be a place to go get a hamburger someplace down there, right? Rather than listen to that stuff.
Something's telling you,
I took a report one time. There was a Girl Scout camp that was down there, and it was like 500 acres. And some of these places, you go across a bridge to get into these steep mountain hollows, and there's just nothing there, and there's no way for people to have access to it. It's so steep. And a pharmacist had been in there, and he was deer hunting, and he told me that he started hearing this screaming, and of course, it was during bow season, and his nephew, which was in his 20s, was on the other mountainside. And he said this screaming went on for about 10 minutes. And he said all of a sudden I could just hear this running. And then he heard his nephew's truck start up and left.
Well, I'm sure there's
he left him to die, man.
Oh, so he left. That was his ride too.
Yeah.
Well, that's
left him to die.
It's not a good nephew.
I know.
I'd be rethinking him in the will.
Exactly.
Oh, so anyway, well,
like, subscribe.
Yep. wideopenresearch@gmail.com. The Bigfoot Doc.
Hey, we appreciate everybody that continues to be amused by us and puts up with us each week.
What is your West Virginia Bigfoot page on Facebook's getting, 10,000 people on it now or something. So
I have no idea what it is. it's been almost a year, I think, maybe right around now. So, I mean, it's busy. Twitter is, I think I'm getting close to 4,000 people in there.
Oh, wow. You're going to hit that tipping point soon. We need to get you a viral video or something. We need to get you that. Maybe you should take, well, too bad that guy wouldn't let you post that video of the Bigfoot running across the trail that you showed us. Post that on your Twitter feed and see if you can get that retweeted or something.
Oh, he'd let me.
Okay. Well,
I can put that on there.
we can chop
maybe I'll
the-
be able to share it.
or
Yeah, I was
maybe
just telling
chop that
somebody the
with
other day that they'd ask how it was going. I said, well, we've really have accumulated a lot of people listening to us. We really appreciate it. And
Right.
I said, if we both weren't busy and we both took like 1 hour a week, I'm sure that we could
do more.
We could do more, but we're
Right.
busy.
Right. We're too busy doing stuff.
And that's right.
I got all these big ideas and like, hey,
Yeah.
let's just put somebody on the payroll. You know, we can have them do our promotion and get this going and
be somebody else to get us in trouble.
Right, exactly. I don't have time. So
well, it's good to see you, my friend. I appreciate you and
so.
appreciate everybody listening to us.
Yep, it is football season, so we do have that going this week. Or every week, and we text during the game, and some games are better than others. So anyway,
all right, it's good to see you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we're out of here.
I was just trying to get us close to an hour.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. We can be a little early tonight.
Well, I thought when she's at 30 minutes, I thought, I don't know. I think we may get to 45, but
yeah, she did all right.
Yeah, she did okay.
It's tough. It's tough to kind of string out a couple brief sightings into an hour or so. But really by the time we get her on, it was like 6-7 minutes in, and then do your thing.
And we're trying to educate people about behavior and stuff. Things that other than they're just not.
It's just not a sighting. It's more than just a sighting. So okay,
yeah,
we're good. All right.
I'm still trying. Our guest next week backed out, so I asked Holler to come on. He couldn't, and so he's working on coming up with a name right now.
I was say who was our guest for next week?
It was going to be that Steve Calls again.
Oh, again?
Well, we didn't get him. Remember, he got confused and had the wrong date or something, so I gave him a different date, and then so he's not getting me on.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, did you want me to be on your show?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I've got some other people coming up, but I went out like 6 weeks, and when you go out 6 weeks, sometimes you have if someone jumps on you right at the beginning, then you're trying to find somebody right then.
Right. I'm trying to think of who we could get that's been in the news lately.
If you come up with something, let me know. I'm
okay.
Usually, I mean, it's happened 8 or 10 times, and usually I'm able to come up with somebody. So I'm watching right now, thinking about who.
Okay.
All right. Be good.
All right. Later, Jason.
See you, man.
Bye.